Good morning, students. I am Vishwa Vyas and I am here to teach you and help you in better way to understand the symmetrical fault analysis. Today we will start the chapter of Power System 2 of semester 5, Symmetrical Fault Analysis. So basically, what is symmetrical? Symmetrical means we can say even, and unsymmetrical we can say odd or even, which is not same, which are different. Okay. In symmetrical fault means the fault which occur in even manner, in the same manner in every phase. Okay, so let's better understand with the presentation. So, a fault in a power system or circuit is a failure which interferes with the normal flow of current. The faults are associated with abnormal change in the current, voltage, and frequency of the power system. In general, fault occurs in power system network due to insulation failure of equipments, flashover of lines initiated by a lightning stroke, or due to accidental faulty operation. So far we have dealt with the steady state behavior of power system under normal operation condition and its dynamic behavior under small scale perturbation. This chapter is devoted to abnormal system behavior under conditions of symmetrical short circuits. Such conditions are caused in the system accidentally through insulation failure of equipments or flashover of lines initiated by lightning stroke or through accidental faulty operation, which we already see. The system must be protected against flow of heavy short circuit currents by disconnecting the faulty parts, which we will do with the help of circuit breakers, okay, and operated by protective relay. For a proper choice of circuit breakers and protective relay, we must estimate the magnitude of currents that would flow under short circuit condition. This is the scope of fault analysis. Why we need the fault calculation, which we already see that we need to select the circuit breaker and protective relay rating. The proper choice of circuit breaker, we must estimate the magnitude of current. Okay, when the fault occurs in the part of power system, heavy current flows and which may cause permanent damage to the electrical. Okay, we already see this. The estimation of this current for various type of fault at various locations in the system is called fault calculation. The data obtained from the fault calculation are also used to determine the setting of the relay which control the circuit breakers. Okay. The majority of system faults are not three-phase faults, which we will see here. The types of fault we saw, there are two types, shunt fault and the second one is series fault. We can also say shunt faults are short circuited and series faults are open conductors. The shunt type of fault involve short circuit between conductor and ground or short circuit between two or more conductors. The shunt fault are characterized by increase in current and fall in voltage and frequency. The series fault may occur with one or two broken conductors, which creates open circuit. The series fault are characterized by increase in voltage and frequency and fall in current in the faulty phase. Here you say in shunt type the current will increase and voltage and frequency decrease, but in series type current will decrease and voltage and frequency will increase. Here we found classified some fault. Main two types are shunt and series fault. Then again in shunt fault there are two types, symmetrical fault and asymmetrical fault. And in series type, open conductor, one open conductor and two open conductor. Now again in unsymmetrical faults there are three types, LG fault, line to ground fault, double line fault and double line to ground fault. And in symmetrical fault there is only one three-phase fault. Okay. After this three-phase fault, we can also say there are occurrence of the fault. During this, we can say there are this type of only 5% is there occurrence of the three-phase fault. then 10% of occurrence of double line to ground fault, 15% of line to line fault, and the major occurrence of the fault is single line to ground fault, which is 70%. So here you can say that only 5% of occurrence is for the symmetrical fault, or we can say three-phase fault. But the majority of system faults are not three-phase fault, but faults involving one line to ground or occasionally two line to ground. These are unsymmetrical fault requiring special tools like symmetrical components and form the subject of study of the next. We will see in the next two chapters. Though the symmetrical faults are rare, but the symmetrical fault analysis must be carried out, as this type of fault generally leads to most severe fault current. Though it has only 5% occurrence, but it can damage our whole grid, or we can say it can block out our whole grid and the electricity power system, right? So it is must be analysis main first the symmetrical fault analysis and the symmetrical components. Okay, afterward we already see the types of faults. Now we will see more about symmetrical fault analysis. So the fault on the power system which gives rise to symmetrical current is called a symmetrical fault, which will equal fault current in the line with 120-degree displacement. The symmetrical fault occurs when all the three conductors of a three-phase line are brought together simultaneously into a short circuit condition as shown in the figure. Here you can say that all three phases are short circuited together. Okay. Now again we will see first the transient on a transmission line, how this transient are made and how we can calculate the transients on the transmission line. So firstly let's consider the short circuit transient on a transmission line of RL. There are few assumptions that we first made to make the calculation easy. First assumption is the line is fed from a constant voltage source. Okay. Second one is short circuit take place when the line is unloaded. So this is for the no load line, not for loaded line. And third assumption is line capacitance is negligible and the line can be represented by a lumped RL series circuit. So here in series you can say that R and L are connected in series and we have input voltage V equal to root 2 V sine of omega t plus alpha. So with the above assumption, the transmission line can be represented by the circuit model which we saw above. The short circuit is assumed to take place at t time t equal to 0. So first the parameter A controls the instant on the voltage wave when short circuit occurs. It is known from circuit theory that the current after short circuit is composed of two parts. Which two parts? First is Is and second is It. Is means it is a steady state current and second one is a transient current. So steady state current is equal to root 2 V by mod of Z and the sine omega t plus alpha minus theta. We know that Z equals to R2 plus omega square L square of 1/2 raised to, and the angle of this Z is tan inverse omega L by R. Now the transient current is equal to, we can say, minus of Is at time 0 exponential of minus I R by L time t. So we put the value of I of S steady state current here and we got the transient current. Thus the short circuit current is given by this Is plus It. We just combine the equations of which we obtain above. Now the plot of Is It and I equal to Is plus It is shown in other figure in power system terminology. Here is the figure, you can say. Now in power system terminology, the sinusoidal steady state current is called the symmetrical short circuit current and the unidirectional transient component is called DC offset current. So steady state current is called symmetrical short circuit and the transient current component is called DC offset current, which causes the total short circuit current to be unsymmetrical till the transient decays. So it easily follows from figure 2 means this is the above figure, that the maximum momentary short circuit current IMM correspond to the first peak. If the decay of transient current in this short some time is neglected, so we will see the equation here. Okay, IMM equal to root 2 V upon Z sine of theta minus alpha. Okay, and the same, since transmission line resistance is small, theta equal to 90 degrees, so it will again reflect to the IMM. This has the maximum possible value for A equal to 0. Okay, short circuit occurring when the voltage wave is going through 0, so the main resultant IMM will be, maximum IMM will be 2 into root 2 V upon mod of Z, twice the maximum of symmetrical short circuit current, doubling effect we can also say. Now for the selection of circuit breaker, momentary short circuit current is taken corresponding to its maximum possible value. Just for the safe choice, we select the maximum possible value to select current for the selection of circuit breakers. Now the next question is the circuit breakers. What is the current to be interrupted? As has been pointed out earlier, modern day circuit breakers are designed to interrupt the current in the first few cycles, only 5 cycles or more, less than that. So with the reference of this second figure, the below figure, it means that when the current is interrupted, the DC offset has not yet died out, so it will be contribute to the current to be interrupted. So rather than computing the value of DC offset at the time of interruption, the symmetrical short circuit current alone is calculated. This figure is then increased by an empirical multiplying factor to account for the DC offset. So we just don't only calculate this IMM, but we also calculate the total I. Total I is what? The total I is steady state current plus transient current for the selection of our circuit breaker. So this is the main short transient circuit in the our transmission line. Afterwards we will see short circuit of an unloaded synchronous machine. Now how we can transmit the on no loaded synchronous machine when the short circuit will occur? What will be the value of the reactance? What will happen to the reactance of the transmission line? That we will see in detail in this topic. So first we have to find out that when the short circuit happen, what will happen, what to the reactance of the circuit. So in normal condition, in normal steady state condition, the armature reaction in synchronous generator produce a demagnetizing effect. This effect can be modeled as a reactance XA here, XA, and in series with the induced EMF and the leakage reactance. That's why the first, in normal condition, we have the resultant reactance is XA plus X1. XA is the armature effect demagnetizing effect and X1 is the leakage reactance. Now this XD is called the synchronous reactance of the synchronous machine. Now suddenly let's consider that the three-phase short circuit happened to this synchronous generator on no load. So the machine experiences a transient in all the three phases and finally ending up in the steady state condition. But before it come in steady state condition, the circuit breaker will work and it will again add the current. The current will rise. So basically what happen, when the current will high, the reactance will get low, reduce. Okay, so the immediately after the short circuit, the symmetrical short circuit current is limited only by leakage reactance of the machine. However, to encounter the demagnetizing of the armature short circuit current appears in the field and damper winding are also assisting to help our main flux. Here you can say that the field and damper winding will come across to sustain the air gap flux. Thus, during the initial part of the short circuit, there is mutual coupling between stator, rotor and damper winding. Hence, the corresponding equivalent circuit of the reactance will be occur. Why this happen? Because the damper and field winding will be in the parallel way of, let's see, here you can say that the damper winding and the field winding reactance will come in the parallel way with the armature reactance. So the main resultant will be x1 plus parallel of xa, xf is the field reactance and xdw is the damper winding reactance. So this will be the reactance in the initial way of short circuit happen. So we can also say that it is a sub-transient reactance. Let's see more in detail. So XD is called sub-transient reactance of the synchronous machine. Here the equivalent resistance of the damper winding is more than that of rotor field winding. In sub-transient reactance, the damper winding will be more than the rotor field winding. Hence, the time constant of damper field winding is smaller. So you have to remember this, that if equivalent resistor is more, the time constant of the damper field winding is smaller. Thus, the damper field effects and the eddy current disappear after a few cycles. So the damper winding is only for just a few cycles, and afterward it will dies out. In other words, damper winding gets open circuited from the model to yield the model as shown in figure. So in the next figure you can see that the damper winding is dies out and only the field winding is remaining with the armature reactance. So the resultant reactance will be this after few cycle of transient happen, short circuit fault happen. So this XD dash will be say as a transient reactance. So first will be the sub-transient phase, and afterwards the damper winding will dies out and it will call transient phase, and the reactance will be called transient reactance. The machine offers a time varying reactance during short circuit, and this value of reactance varies from initial stage to final one, such that here you can say that XD will be more then the XD dash. XD is the steady state reactance, XD dash is the sub-transient reactance, and then XD dash is the transient reaction. So here you can say as the XD is more, the current will be less. Afterward the XD dash transient is less than the XD, so the current will be high. And afterwards again the XD double dash sub transient is again very much less, so the current will be very much high. Now we can also say this thing with the current circuit oscillogram. Here you can say that the synchronous machine, so after the DC offset current have been removed from it, we will find the current wave shape as here given. Here you can see here this one, the upper one is the sub-transient and the lower one is the transient waveform oscillogram. So that what we see that the time constant of the sub-transient is smaller, so it is decaying very fast in the compared to the this field winding time constant, and this one is steady state. Okay, so we can say here with the help of oscillogram we can also find out that the current estimation. How we can find out current estimation is with the help of this. RMS value of steady state current I will be OA upon root 2. This OA field, A is a line of steady state, so this OA field will be the steady state current magnitude upon root 2, so EG by XD. Then afterward transient current will be OB upon root 2 equal to HG by divided by XD dash, and for sub transient current I equal to OC by root 2, so EG upon XD double dash. This will be the calculation for the our reactants, subtransient and transient reactants. So afterwards we will, these are the values for the transient when occur fault condition on no load, not for the loaded conditions. Now there are also few examples of this type of reactants. So let's first see the examples. Afterwards we will see the next topic. Okay. Before example, let's first read out what is this example, and we can discuss that how we will calculate, how we will solve this. So first, the example in this, for the radial network shown in this figure, three-phase fault occurs at F. Where is F? Here. Three-phase fault occur at F. Determine the fault current and the line voltage at 11 kV bus. Here we have to find the fault current and line voltage here when the fault occurs at this. So what this will affect to how and how we can calculate it? Can anyone tell me how we will see? Is impedance and reactance into per unit reactance and per unit impedance. So first we will take the base. What we can find, first we have to take the base, we have to select the base of the MVA and the kilowatt. So here you can see, wait, the we can say सबसे ज़्यादा MVA कौन सा है उसको हम एज अ बेस ले सकते हैं. पर यूनिट यानी क्या, किसी भी एक्चुअल चीज़ को अगर हमने बेस के साथ डिवाइड कर दिया, सो इट विल बी इन अ पर यूनिट बेस, राइट. सो फर्स्ट वी हैव टू सिलेक्ट द बेस. So here we can say that the maximum MVA in whole system is 10 MVA. You can say 10 MVA is the maximum. So we can for a एज अ वी कैन से रेफरेंस 100 MVA तक का हम ले सकते हैं, ठीक है. तो अगर हमने सिस्टम बेस 100 MVA तक का लिया, देन आफ्टर वी हैव टू टेक द बेसिस ऑफ वोल्टेज. सो देर आर थ्री हियर मेन टर्म्स. फर्स्ट इज द जनरेटर, then the overhead lines, or we can say transmission lines, and then the cables. So for all these three terms system we have to take different bases. Okay, so here we know that the 11 kV is for generator, so we can take voltage base as 11 kV for generator. Then the 33 kV for overhead line, this one, and the 6.6 kV for only this cable. Okay, so we first decide the basis. Now here we can say that the system base we take as 100 MVA and the voltage bases are also we defined. Now the reactance of generator and transmission, the main we can say that the equation for the generator and transmission reactance line, it is a, you can say that the percentage what we get, can say that the Z, the reactance in ohm, right, into base of MVA and divide by the base of this, the percentage of reactance which we are taking, right. So in above manner we can say in generator G1 what we have, this is the generator GM1. We have 10 MVA and 15% of reactance. So 15% of reactance into the base of MVA divided by the actual MVA. So what is the actual MVA? Actual MVA is 10 MVA, base MVA is 100 MVA, and into the reactance. But we have to take reactance in terms of, not in terms of percentage. So here we can say that the 15%, so 0.15 into 100 is the base MVA, divided by 10 is the actual MVA. So we will get the percentage unit of J equal to 1.25. Similarly, for the generation reactance of generator 2. So here we have actual is 10 MVA and the percentage reactance is 12.5%. So 12.5% into the base MVA, which is 100, divided by actual MVA. Okay, so here we get J point equal to 1.25. Similarly, the same manner we can also find the reactance of T1 and T2. Now for T1 and T2 we have the reactance here. For T1 10% reactance, and for T2 transformer we have 8% reactance, and the actual MVA for T1 is 10 MVA and for T2 is 5 MVA. So you only have to remember this formula, that the reactance, percentage reactance into the base of MVA divided by actual MVA to find the reactance. Now we find the all reactance for G1, G2, T1, T2 in per unit system. Now for the overhead line impedance. To find the impedance, we have formula Z in ohms into MVA base divided by kilowatt base square. What we did in reactance, MVA base divided by MVA actual, but for the impedance we have to divide it from the kV, kilowatt base square. So we already divided this base square. For the generator base kilowatt is 33 kV and for cable it is 6.6 kV. Now we say that what is the Z in ohms in the overhead line. So here for the overhead line we have the length of 30 km and the impedance are also given 0.27 plus J 0.36 in ohm. So we have to take this and put it in the formula, and into 100 it's our MVA base and 33 is our voltage base square. So the equivalent result we will give take as a 0.74 plus J 0.99 per unit. Now same for cable impedance. In cable impedance also we have given the length and the Z. So 3 km is the length and the ohm is 0.135 plus J 0.08. So take it, and the voltage base square for cable is 6.6. So the resultant will be 0.93 plus J 0.55. So here what we get, all the reactance G1, G2, T1, T2 and all the impedance of overhead line and the cable impedance that we get. Now afterwards we have to put all these things in the per unit system base thing. The impedance which we get in per unit. Now here we can say that the generator, both two generator are in parallel term, because so you can see here G1 and G2 are in parallel term, then this transformer are in series, and afterwards the cable is going where the three phase fault is occur. So according to that figure we can draw this per unit system. So first is G1, G2 are in parallel and their particular corresponding reactance which we get J 1.5 divided by upon J 1.25. Then this T1 transformer which we got. Afterward the line impedance which we get, overhead line 30 km overhead line impedance, then the second transformer, and afterward the cable. So here it already did the short circuit to the 11 kV line. Okay, now so after making this whole PU system, we now just have to make total impedance. How much total impedance will be here? So you can say only G1 and G2 are in parallel and all other impedance are in series. So just equalize it with this value. So we here J 1.5 parallel to J 1.25 and all other impedance we just adding up. Okay, and the total impedance which we get is 5.1 at an angle 70.8 angle in per unit system. Now we got the impedance. What in question what was asked is fault current and the line voltage at 11 kV bus. So how we can find the fault current? Fault current we can basically say that the voltage divided by impedance, right? So impedance which we got total impedance. To find that total impedance, first what we did that we convert the whole system in per unit, then afterward we convert all reactance and impedance in per unit system with the formula of MVA base divided by MV actual base. After we get the total impedance. So now to find this fault current, we can normally voltage divided by impedance and we can find this fault current. Okay, so let's see fault current. Okay, here. So for fault current, voltage divided by total impedance. So voltage here we have to keep in mind that we are doing this in per unit system. So we cannot directly take this 33 kV. We have to use here 1 at an angle 0. Why? Because we are using per unit system. So what is the base voltage for per unit? That is 1 at angle 0. Okay, so 1 at angle 0 divided by the total impedance which we get. So the final result we will get, it is the short circuit condition, so fault current. But here also this is not the short circuit current which we ask to get. This is in per unit system. Now again we have to convert this per unit term into the actual term. So for actual term what we will do, we will first find the base current, how much base current will be there. So for base current we again do same, the volt MVA divided by KVA. We can, the base we have MVA, what we did what was the base of MVA, we did keep 100 MVA. So the 100 MVA divided by, why we use here 6.6 kV, because we are using for this for the cable. So for the cable we already choose the 6.6 kV as a base. So base MVA divided by root 3 base KVA. So 110 MVA divided by root 3 into 6.6, that will result in 8750 ampere. And now simply by multiply this with the fault current, we will get actual fault current 1715 ampere. So the fault current in actual manner we will get by this. Now again we want a voltage at 11 kV bus. So for all the impedance between F and 11 kV, here here now whatever the impedance between this 11 kV bus and fault, we will adding up that impedance and it will give us the voltage. So these are all in series, so we will simply adding that up, and afterward the voltage at 11 kV bus was 4.43 at an angle 67.8, which we get as impedance into 0.196. What we did, I into R, it is the voltage. So here R means impedance and I what we get, short circuit current. So we simply multiply Z and I and we got the voltage around 11 kV volt. Okay, so this is the whole sum which we did. So first to do the sum, you have to first see the whole example, that how many information is given and what was asked to find. So according to that we can simply just cover whole the thing and do the sum. Okay, any query you can ask. Okay, so here the main our topic, short circuit condition on synchronous machine on no load was covered, and we also see that the how we can convert the per unit system from the actual system and to find fault current and the voltage. Okay, so in next lecture we will see short circuit on the loaded condition. Maybe the tomorrow was the second lecture. Okay, so we will meet there. Okay. Okay, then up till there we can meet tomorrow. Okay, bye bye.